Good evening. This is Adam Marcus.
And I'm Steve Green.
And we are the Grad Admissions Gurus, and we are at the MBA Tour, Tokyo September 3rd event. Steve will begin with the all-important pen report.
Pens. That's right. We're here at the Keio Plaza Hotel in dynamic Shinjuku of Tokyo, and as we did on Tuesday, one of the first things that we'll talk about, because, well, it's a good theory, is Adam's theory of pens, namely that the higher ranked schools generally don't have pens, or at least fewer of them do.
Yeah.
Tonight we saw a wide range of schools, and Adam's going to talk about that in more detail soon, but we also saw somewhat of a range of pens tonight. Georgetown, NYU had pens. I've got a nice shiny blue pen from Erasmus School, as well as a nice shiny red one from the University of Maryland. I should point out the RSM pen has a great motto, actually: critical thought, practical action.
That's lovely.
I like
so
that.
it kind of undermined my whole pen theory, though, because I don't know if UCLA had pens. Probably, maybe not. Hard to tell. It was kind of too packed there, but it seemed like many of these schools actually had pens.
More than I expected.
Yeah, and the
definitely
top
more than
and the top ranking ones. Yeah. It seems like there's a difference. Even though I am a resource, an official resource provider for the MBA tour, I don't think it's inappropriate to say that they definitely bring together schools that have more pens than the World MBA Tour.
That is without a doubt true, based on at least in Japan, and I'm assuming that Japan is exemplary for the other events around the world. So definitely the MBA Tour seems to bring together the pens. So if you're looking for free pens as well as useful information for school selection strategy and other things, then you might want to check out the MBA Tour. Adam, as we noticed tonight, there was a good range of schools. We had schools like Cranfield.
Give the camera to you, Steve.
We had schools like Cranfield, Cornell, Georgetown, and Duke.
Schools like Cranfield. Have you ever heard of that school, Steve? Be honest. Did you ever hear of it before?
I hadn't heard of it until we discussed the fact that it was ranked highly in the Economist's intelligence report.
And how many people were interested in that school?
When we were wandering around the presentation room tonight, the fair itself, I should say, I didn't see anybody over at the Cranfield table, and no pens either.
And yet at many of the other schools, there were a lot of people. Yeah, and one of the things that's always interesting is you look at international rankings for schools, and you see, my hand is here. It's bad. Yeah, you look at the international rankings for schools, and you see this incredible, sometimes disparity between a school's international ranking and its actual level of popularity in any particular place. Cranfield, very good school. No local interest here. There's a bunch of other schools which are much lower ranked internationally that have more people interested in them here. And there's certainly a crowding effect at the top schools as well.
Definitely. Adam, one of the things I alluded to a few minutes ago was school selection strategy and the MBA Tour and the MBA Fair and all these events. Can you elaborate on that for us a bit?
Well, I think for some people coming to a fair like this, they get, this list of 39, and it's kind of sort of the process of just simply collecting information. And so they can look at all of these schools and just get a whole bunch of brochures, learn about a whole bunch of different places, and then start to figure things out. And that can be, it's a good way to do it. It's kind of inefficient in a sense, of course, because you're literally not going about it in a very organized way. But then you do things like ranking. You look at rankings of schools, and that's another way of selecting. The thing that I think is, you bring all of these different methods together. You look at the rankings, various rankings for schools vary, and then you look at your just general feeling when you talk to an admissions officer, then you think about the conversation you had with an alum, and all of those ways are valuable.
Someone asked me that, speaking of talking to the admissions officers and representatives who are here, someone asked me the other night, he was attending this for the first time, and he asked me, what kind of questions can I ask these people? What kind of questions can I ask the admissions officer or a school representative? And I think it was a good question to ask. What kind of questions he asked? What kind of questions do you think people should bring to these events?
Well, they should, one, if they're interested in a particular area of business, like if they're very finance focused or very entrepreneurial focused, that's always a way to begin a conversation. And then if they have any particular concerns about test score ranges or degree, what kind of GPA is necessary, about the culture of the school, all of those questions are quite reasonable to ask.
Great. And how much impact do you think all this can have on someone's ultimate? How much impact should they allow it to have on their school selection strategy?
Sometimes first impressions are great.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're really bad. I mean, because, you could meet an admissions officer who's just having a bad night, or you could meet a bad admissions officer who could turn you off from a school that you're actually really interested in. And so I think it's important to, as with anything else, get multiple perspectives. From my viewpoint, I think the most reliable source of information are the alums about particular schools, because you talk to the alums and you can really get a sense, what kind of people go to the school and what their experience was like. And to me, these past customers are really some of the most effective people to talk with. Admissions people are always kind of limited in terms of what they can say.
Sure. Why would that be?
Because they represent their school.
Mm-hmm.
And they might even be further limited due to legal issues, like just simply saying, we let in people of all ages, when in fact, statistically, the school might be a school that doesn't actually admit people over the age of 35.
Mm-hmm.
And so admissions officers can be honest to a certain extent, but they're institutionally constrained.
Mm-hmm.
It's more likely the case that an alum is going to give you the straight facts. And the more recently they've graduated, the closer it is to the actual reality of the institution at present. One issue is always that older alums, while they can be a great source of information, things at schools can change radically sometimes.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
And so you can't be overly dependent on what an older alum says. Again, it's about bringing together multiple sources of information. It's like even with the rankings. If you look at the Economist's rankings versus looking at FT's versus Business Week's versus U.S. News and World Report, you're going to get a completely different sense of where schools actually rank. And it's important to look at those differences when you're looking at your own institution. Then you can also go to my ranking, the 100, the real rankings.
The real rankings,
which is by post-MBA salary.
That's right.
Because for me, when I ultimately think about this, I think about the market value of a degree. It's like Forbes has this great ROI calculator that they put up where you can actually figure out what the expected return on your degree is going to be. And to me, that kind of thing is a very valuable exercise as well.
Absolutely. Great.
All right. Where are we time-wise, Steve?
We're just past 9 minutes.
All right, then. I think it's time for us to say goodbye. So
sayonara.
Bye-bye.
Oyasumi. Bye-bye.